Again, welcome to Gambling and Day Trading. The presenter, his name is Dan Trolaro, if I hopefully said that correct. He's the Vice President of Prevention in the U.S. for Epic Risk Management. Prior to this, he served as the Assistant Executive Director for the Council on Compulsive Gambling of New Jersey, which they were better known as 800 Gambler. Upon graduating from the College of New Jersey with a major in finance and a concentration in economics, he spent 12 years in the world of investment banking, risk management, and financial planning. And you're like, now he's doing this? What? I don't understand this. Despite that successful career, Dan had also been suffering in silence with a gambling disorder since high school. Having lived experience in the area of gambling addiction, coupled with the traumatic events of 9/11, Dan left the world of finance so that he could help heal personally and be a help to others who suffer from gambling disorder. In 2013, he went on to receive his master's in psychology, and Dan has worked with stakeholders in over 25 states and has delivered hundreds of workshops, trainings, and keynote presentations around the country centered on prevention, education, and emerging trends in the world of gambling. And while he hails from New Jersey, he is actually seated in Virginia today. So welcome to Virginia, both virtually and in person, Dan.
Thank you, Ann. It's great to be here. I'm down in Danville, Virginia, spending some time working with Averett University and the student athletes and the academic staff and athletic staff to help reduce gambling-related harm. As we know, Virginia has definitely been a very busy state with respect to gambling bills and education and awareness. Ann, I appreciate you allowing me to take this time to talk about gambling and day trading. And before we do it, Ann, you also mentioned that there's a House bill pending that would provide education in the school system. And I think that's so vital. When we're talking about prevention, we need to get to people early on to help educate them around harms that they might experience. And gambling is one of those harms that's really bubbling. It's really coming to the surface quickly. Virginia doesn't have any brick and mortar casinos yet. We know Caesars is building one in Danville. But there's mobile device, the sports betting, there's lottery, you have quick marts, with gambling machines that you can go into and play slot style games there. And so gambling's all around us. And where traditional gambling, is pretty much risking something of value in order to win something of value, where there's an element of risk, we're starting to see very similar comparisons in the world of day trading and stock market investing. And so today it was important to kind of talk about this topic for the next 55 minutes or so, to talk about, what are those behaviors that we associate with gambling? How do they carry over into the world of day trading? We have many clinicians on this webinar today. We have preventionists. We have a good diverse mix of people from around the state. And it's interesting because we don't necessarily have to categorize something as gambling in order to develop a problem with it. People often say, well, I can play fantasy sports contests. That's not gambling, so I should be fine. In the world of addiction, you can become addicted almost to anything, because addiction, quite simply, is when you need to do this thing that makes you feel better. And if you don't do it, you will feel a certain different type of way. We start off gambling, we start off day trading, drinking. I'm not going to refrain from drug use because oftentimes that can be illegal. But that can start off as a fun social or a fun time or something for recreation. But then that crosses over into habitual performance, something that you tend to find yourself doing, like a routine. It's when that habit starts to become something you need to do to feel better. That's when it becomes addiction. And so today we're going to look at a connection that we're starting to see more interest in around the world of gambling and day trading, especially as sports betting expands. Virginia is seeing an onslaught of sports betting. There's hundreds of millions of dollars being wagered on sports books in the state of Virginia, and it's using your mobile device. But what about when sports was shut down 2 years ago at the start of COVID? And that's when we started thinking about this topic. When there were no sports to wager on, what were people doing? Some people still needed to have action or excitement, or they had to escape something that they didn't know how to deal with. And they were using alcohol, they were using other illicit narcotics. But people who were using gambling couldn't use sports betting. They started using day trading. They started opening up a Robinhood. account. They were opening up stash accounts. And while stash accounts, you typically can't day trade like you can with some of the other sites, we saw more money flowing into online stock trading accounts than ever before, because people wanted to have something. They wanted to buy cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. They want to buy the next best stock, the next Tesla, the next Apple or Amazon. They wanted to buy Dogecoin. So they're looking for this rapid reward, this fast reinforcement. So why is it? And why are we concerned in connecting it with gambling? We're going to take a moment to take a look at it today. Please put your questions in the chat or in the Q&A as we move through the day, because we're going to look at those similarities and connected behaviors between gambling and day trading. My background, before I show this first video, Ann had mentioned, I'm over 12 years in recovery, so I'm privileged to be here, and I'm thankful for that opportunity. February 11, 2010 was the day of my last bet, and I spent that time at Goldman Sachs and Prudential, two wonderful investment banks and financial management insurance companies. But I had a gambling problem my entire life. I was in charge of other people's finances and a financial planner. That's not a good combination. And what really drove me back to gambling and where it really got bad were the events of September 11th when I was working downtown. And I remember seeing the plane hit the towers. I remember running towards the towers because my managing director's wife was on the 86th floor. And she died that day. And I lost 14 friends on September 11th, and I lost 2 more to suicide in the weeks that followed. And so when we talk about behavioral health, we talk about developing problems with addiction. For me, gambling was the thing that I went to in order to kind of escape the negative mood state that I was in, the feelings that I had. So that's what I used. And as I did the activity more and more, and I was day trading at the time, I was gambling, they were so connected. Each one, both felt just really good. It was hitting my brain the right way. And what I want to show is this video from the British Broadcasting Corporation to start the session, because it really highlights the importance of what we're talking about and how the brain can start to form those neural pathways, right? And it'll start to all of a sudden look for not just the reward, but actively participating in the activity is almost just as addicting as the outcome. So take a look at this as they put a gentleman inside an MRI machine and they see what happens to his brain while he's playing roulette. I think it's a wonderful video, and there'll be some conclusions that are drawn that I think will be fascinating and help you think about gambling and process addictions, as well as in the activity of day trading, maybe a little differently. Take a look.
It's getting me excited already.
We arranged for gambler Tony Franklin to join a unique experiment by one of the world's leading experts on addiction, Professor David Nutt.
No, it's a mistake.
Gambling addiction is not a failure of will. It is a brain disorder which is preyed upon by the gambling industry.
Honestly, I can feel my heartbeat just rising, just looking at the damn thing.
Once you become addicted, it's very, very hard to stop because you've changed your brain. Addiction is a brain that has changed to become entrained to the desires of the gambling.
So we're going to start the roulette task, Tony.
This will be the first time anyone plays something similar to a fixed odds betting terminal from inside an MRI scanner. The professor says it will reveal what's happening in Tony's brain as he uses a keypad to bet.
Got £1,000 to spend. Can I spend it all on the first spin?
When Tony is doing his task, when he's looking at the roulette wheel and he's making a decision to bet, parts of the brain get turned on and then they can't stop. And we think there's probably a chemical basis to that. So that's what we're expecting to see, that the habit centers are overactivated in people with gambling compared with normal people like us. The brain's not very active. Maybe a little bit here, he's thinking at what shall I do? But it's pretty calm. Contrast that with what happens in the next one. And
that's a huge difference from
indeed
there to there.
Exactly.
So that's in a matter of seconds as well, would it be?
Exactly.
Or?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
So here we see the visual system, the back of the brain here, intensely activated. He's watching really closely. He wants that ball bearing to come down on his color. And now we look at the emotional regions. And these are different regions activated. This is the anterior cingulate cortex. This is the insular. And these are the two areas of the brain which make sense of emotions. They may generate the emotion he's feeling of excitement. Will I win? Won't I win? And here we see a very similar picture. In fact, the only real difference between winning and anticipating is this area here. And this is an area where I think we see the sense of satisfaction. Yeah, I've won. That's good. Register that. Start again. But overall, winning and waiting to see if you've won, the anticipation, they're both pretty much the same. And that's a really key point about gambling. It's not just the winning that counts. It's the taking part. And the taking part repeatedly when you don't win is as activating to a gambler as the winning. When you're sitting at a fixed odd terminal, you're getting this every 20 seconds.
Yeah.
So you can have hundreds of them. And so that process can become, in the end, it becomes kind of habitual. It becomes addictive.
And so, let me get my video back on. Sorry about that. If you substitute out the word gambling into day trading, you know, it's the blinking lights, it's the rapid response, it's the immediate gratification in the world of gambling where you can use a smartphone and a mobile device and you can make so many different bets in such a short period of time. With sports betting, you can do micro betting, which now you can bet on the next quarter during a football or basketball game. You can bet on the next series of plays. You can bet in a baseball game, the next inning. This is all expanding rapidly. So it's that rapid reinforcement that can lead to habit-forming centers of the brain starting to process gambling and then trading differently, and then it can become addictive. So we start to see the comparison and similarity between online gambling and day trading. They both are rapid reinforcement. They impact brain activity. And you have this reward schedule where every so often it feels good. With gambling, every so often you win something. With day trading, every so often a position that you're holding actually makes some money and you can choose to sell, close out that position, and then invest your money into something else. And so we start to see not so much gambling and day trading because one's regulated by financial services sector and one's regulated by a gambling commission, but it's the underlying behaviors. And that's what we really want to drill at today. Those underlying behaviors, personality traits that lend themselves to addictive tendencies. These are the areas that we really need to be concerned with. So let's take a look from a legal perspective to understand a little bit about what gambling and investing, stock market world, day trading looks like. You know, what's interesting with gambling is that gambling is prohibited unless it's specifically legalized and regulated. We saw that in 2018 when sports betting was starting to come to state by state. New Jersey was one of the first states. New Jersey's had legalized sports betting since 2018. Virginia recently, obviously. But with investing in stock market, that's a federal policy. That's open and free to everyone of age. It's not driven state by state. So gambling is regulated at the state level. Investing and stock market day trading is regulated at the national level, okay? Currently, gambling is legal and available to those 18 and older. Usually lottery is 18. Most casinos and sports betting is 21 because in some jurisdictions, there's the presence of alcohol. But generally speaking, 18. With investing in day trading, you can be 16 years old and open up an account, a custodial account. So you can start it a little bit younger. Warren Buffett once said that about stock market behavior, the light can at any time go from green to red without pausing at yellow. And I love that quote because a person who's not knowledgeable about trading in the stock market, and we saw this so often during the last 2 years, young people, emerging adults, putting money into something that they have no idea what's going on. It's blind risk. You're just hoping it's going up. You're doing it because your friends are doing it. You're doing it because you're reading it on a thread, a Reddit thread. called Wall Street Bets, actually. And you're going to throw, $2,000 into this thing that just now plummeted. And now you just lost your money. And so there's an element of risk and gambling mentality that exists within the world of day trading. And you can see some other quotes here. The mother of all evil is speculation, from the character from Gordon Gekko in the movie Wall Street. And one of my, I don't want to use the word idol, but mentor in the financial services world, I had the privilege of meeting Peter Lynch, who is one of the most experienced and successful portfolio managers at Fidelity for their Magellan Fund. He said, investing is fun and exciting and dangerous if you don't do any work. Behind every stock is a company. Find out what it's doing. So my son is 16. He asked me about the stock market. I said, there'll be no day trading. I do not want to see transactions and buying and selling, because now you're preoccupied. You're following this thing on a daily basis. You're not paying attention to your schoolwork, your studies, your athletics, whatever it is. If you want to buy a stock, buy it because you use the product, or buy it because you believe in the company and you've read good things, you've done your homework. And so he did. He bought Nike because he loves Nike. He bought Amazon because he uses Amazon. He bought Starbucks because he goes to Starbucks with his friends. See, there's this theory that some people think day trading and investing are the same. They're not. Day trading is rapidly buying and selling, hoping to make quick profit. Investing is, I'm going to buy it now and I'm going to put it away and I'm going to forget about it for the long term. So for me, being 12 years in recovery from my gambling addiction, I have a retirement account, which I look at once a year to rebalance if necessary, but that's providing a benefit for a future, something that I'm not paying attention to on a daily basis. If I had a day trading account now, as a person in recovery from gambling, that could be the trigger that sends me back to gambling, because you experience the same emotions, you experience the same buzz and excitement and adrenaline rush from trading stocks rapidly as you do from gambling and pulling a slot machine every 10 seconds or playing blackjack every 10 seconds. It's rapid reinforcement. Taking a look at the historical perspective, what's interesting, when I was doing some digging and some research as the former assistant director to 800 Gambler, I had insight into some of the historical data that the 800 Gambler helpline would receive. And it was interesting because prior to 1987, helpline calls to 800 Gambler for stock market trading only represented about 2% of calls. People don't call a gambling helpline if they have a problem with their day trading, because they don't connect the two. But going back to that Black Monday in October of 87, when the market plunged 22% in a single day, in the weeks that followed, the 800 Gambler helpline had 44% of its total helpline calls were for problems with stock market trading and investing. That's phenomenal. People actually made the connection because there were news reports, there were stories that the market is gambling, don't put your money in the market. And people started saying, well, I need help. I don't know where to turn. So it's interesting that a gambling helpline received almost 44% of its total helpline calls were for stock market issues. Even Dr. Robert Custer, a pioneer in the field of gambling addiction and treatment and research, testified that stock market gamblers represented 20% of the actual gamblers that he diagnosed. So here's someone in treatment. 1 out of every 5 traditional gamblers that came to see him were also investing in the stock market. And this is well before technology. This is well before internet trading, day trading. These are people that lost their shirts in the market blindly. I went on to find some more information about everyday people, people like you, people like me, individuals, human beings who went ahead and had invested money and had lost sizable amounts. And here are some of the excerpts, the qualitative pieces. From Fred B. in March of 99, 42-year-old male, a professional earning a professional with a salary above 100,000, and he's in debt for more than 100,000. He's married. He has a family, but he trades stocks and plays casino. And you could see these stories. These are human beings. You know, when we talk about this, it's important to talk about numbers and statistics and data, but it's also important to talk about the human side and the human element. Ken was a gambler in recovery, attending GA meetings, but he continued to trade stocks and day trade? See, it's that connected behavior. Was he really in good, strong recovery? I don't know. I think we have to address his day trading. And as clinicians on this webinar today, I encourage you that if you are treating someone in recovery from drug and alcohol use and or gambling, that you ask questions about the other activities that they're involved in, including day trading. In the last 2 years, have you opened up a personal day trading account? You ask the question. If they say, no, I'm not into that, okay, great. You might find a number of people who say, yeah, I opened up a Robinhood account, or I trade E-Trade or Fidelity. Well, tell me a little bit more about that. How many hours a day do you spend online researching stocks? How many hours a day would you estimate that you spend trading stocks? How many hours a day do you spend thinking about it, right? That's the preoccupation. Maybe it's not per day, maybe it's per week. Try to understand a little bit more about this world, because you can easily see through that line of questioning if someone's starting to switch addictions, or if that addiction can send someone back to their original drug of choice. As we go through the session here, I want to share with you that there are many different types of investments. You know, investing is not bad. I'm not going to say here that people shouldn't do any type of investing. It's important. It's important to outpace inflation. It's important to secure our future. I'm sure many of you on this webinar today have stocks or bonds or mutual funds or CDs, whatever it might be, some type of savings, right? We want to save for our security, for our retirement, hopefully someday. We want to maybe pass something on, a transition of generational wealth to the next generation, to your kids or your grandchildren. So there's many different reasons that people invest. And typically there's the safe investments at the bottom of this pyramid, right? You can ask your clients, hey, so if I were to show you this pyramid, tell me about what you really focus your time in. What are you investing in? What are you buying? And they can look at this and say, okay, yeah, I just have some life insurance. I have some bonds. Some people might say, I love to buy really crazy, aggressive, risky companies. I own gold. I own art. That's all very volatile. That's very risky, right? People enjoy taking risks. When I was a financial planner, one of the areas that we had to complete first was called a risk profile questionnaire. We had to understand someone's risk tolerance. And there was a sequence of questions. If X happened, how would you feel, right? So we're trying to understand, you know, what do you need this money for? Do you need it in the next 5 years, the next 30 years, or 50 years? Because then we can start to formulate a plan that's suitable and appropriate. And there's a lot of risk when we talk about the market. Anyone who owns stocks or bonds or mutual funds is subject to all types of risks. We're seeing this play out in real life right now, unfortunately. We saw it in COVID a couple of years ago. When COVID hit, there was concern about the economy slowing, but the stock market actually ended up over time taking off. But now we're seeing stocks retreat and pull back because of the unfortunate events that are happening overseas in Russia and the Ukraine, and the price of oil going up, leading to an increase and a surge in prices at the gas pump. And so there's a trickle-down effect, because as people start paying more money for some of these necessities like gas to fuel your car or to heat your home, well, then there's less money to go around for other things. And people might start making decisions on whether or not they travel or fly based upon the rise of prices. So there is the trickle-down effect, and there's all types of risks involved when we are investing or day trading or gambling. But I want to highlight two of the most common definitions of trading. You have day trading and you have position trading. What I want to heighten concern and awareness and provide more education on is around the first one, day trading. And day trading, quite simply, would be done by individuals engaging in a form of speculation. There's the key word, speculation, whereby the individual executes transactions. They're trading all throughout the day, and they're just trying to make little profits all along the way. They're rapidly buying and selling, buying and selling. But think about this from a behavioral process. You're so entwined, you're so engrossed in the activity. It's preoccupation, it's immersion, it's dissociation from other things around you. And it's easy to spend hours on end on this. Fast forward to the way sports betting is being rolled out around the country. It's called in-play sports betting. And it allows an individual to bet on the next pitch in a baseball game, the next serve in a tennis match, the next hole in a round of golf. It's that rapid reinforcement. It's the feeling that I'm going to stay so connected and engrossed in this activity because I don't want to miss an opportunity. That's where they're very similar behaviorally, right? We understand the legal and the technical differences, but I want to drill down to the behavioral. When we talk about the disease of addiction, take the word disease and break it up into two parts: dis-ease. There's something not at ease within each and every one of us. And for those in recovery from gambling, from alcohol misuse, from substance misuse, there's something not at ease. You see, the gambling and the drinking is not the problem. That's the solution to the deeper problem. Some type of pain, some type of fear, some type of vulnerability that the individual doesn't want to deal with, they don't know how to deal with, or they've never been taught the right tools or skills to deal with. And that's where we start getting to the root cause of the issue. The other type of trading definition is position trading. This is your buy and hold investor, someone who's buying a stock or a mutual fund or a bond today, and they're not even looking at it. They're going out 20, 30 years. It's not a problem. This is what we're looking for. This is fine. This is not cause for concern. You're holding it with expectation of some type of future appreciation. The day trading is the area we need to focus on. And then within day trading, there is something even shorter term called scalping. So day trading is buying and selling rapidly throughout the course of the day. You're not going to hold any positions at the end of the day. Sometimes you're holding a position for a couple minutes, maybe an hour. You're looking for that swing in the market. Scalping is a fast forward version of day trading, where the person is buying or selling within seconds or minutes. That's rapid. The area of concern that I want to highlight here is if we take a step back and we think about our ability to adapt. Humans have an amazing ability of adaptation. That's one of our tremendous abilities that we have as humans, in the sense that as we become more familiar with something, or as we train or exercise or do something, we adapt, we recruit new muscle fibers, we recruit new cells, we recruit whatever we need, and then we're able to take on a little bit more. And that's how tolerance builds over time. So when someone starts drinking, for example, they might have a glass of wine and feel tipsy. But as you consume alcohol on a regular basis and over a longer period of time, your body starts to develop a tolerance. Now maybe you can have 2 glasses of wine in order to feel the same buzz. That also applies to gambling. Someone who starts off with a $5 bet will bet like that for a while, but over time, that's just not doing it for you. So now it needs to be a $10 bet in order to generate that same level of excitement. And then it goes from there. Well, trading can be the same way. You start off as a buy and hold trader, but then okay, that's fine. But now I'm going to start doing some day trading. I'm going to make some transactions, maybe a couple each day. Okay, now my tolerance is increasing. Now I need to do this thing where I'm transacting every 10 minutes, every 5 minutes, every 1 minute. And that's where we really have to be concerned about people who are already at risk, that have certain personality traits, competitive nature, fear of failure, winning mentality, all of these things where people do not like to lose, fear of missing out, fear of failure, like I mentioned. And you start seeing people develop that tolerance. And then if they're in recovery from substance use disorder, from drugs, from alcohol, they can easily switch, because this is a fast life. This is fast money. This is something that creates a buzz, and there's no positive urine screen, right? You're not going to pee dice if you're gambling, and you're not going to pee stock market quotes or newspapers if you're trading in the stock market. So there's no positive urine screen, and it can be looked at as a harmless activity. What's the harm? I'm not doing anything to my body. So what's the problem? The financial devastation and financial ruin can be catastrophic. We understand the concern over suicide ideation, attempt, and completion amongst people with gambling problems is higher than those who struggle and suffer with substance use disorder. Unfortunately, last year, a young man took his own life when he had opened up a Robinhood account. It was well publicized in the news. He didn't understand the nature of his investments, and he thought he had lost substantial sums of money, but he really didn't. But unfortunately, he completed suicide. So what are some of the observations that we're making today? Well, technology is the thing that allows us to do all of this. It's evolved. There's faster connectivity. There's more access to information than ever. You can execute transactions quicker. And that's in the day trading world. But that same sentence applies to sports betting. Technology has evolved. There's online trading. There's faster connection times. There's so many opportunities to open up accounts with so many different operators. There's lots of information to research. And you can make multiple bets very quickly in a short period of time. It's interesting that both of them come from the motivation of action and escape. And we talked about drinking, drug use, gambling. That's not the problem. That's the solution to the problem. You know, in my life, I started gambling for action. It was an excitement. I love playing sports. I was very good at baseball. I was getting scouted by 2 Major League Baseball teams, the Phillies and the Reds, my junior year of high school. I was being looked at by numerous Division I colleges, but then I hurt my arm. I was a pitcher and I hurt my shoulder. And so baseball and sports ended. So I needed gambling in my life for action. But then after September 11th, after losing 14 friends and 2 more to suicide in the weeks that followed, I used gambling to escape. I used it to escape a negative mood state. I knew I didn't want to stay in the negative space I was in. I didn't care where I went mentally, emotionally. I just knew I didn't want to stay there. So for me, gambling and day trading were the 2 things that provided that same sense of relief. The same buzz, the same immersion, the same preoccupation, the same excitement. You know, it felt really good when I won a bet. It also felt really good when I picked a stock and I guessed right. Sometimes I didn't know what the hell I was investing in. I was just purely speculating. Take a listen to this clip from NPR, and here's a gentleman who shares his journey with day trading struggles. And I'm not going to say day trading addiction because there's no clinical diagnosis for that. But this is a gentleman who shares how it really got out of hand for him. And it's interesting when you sit and listen to the feelings and how he describes it, because you can hear it in other forms of addiction that we treat for in terms of substance use or for gambling. So I think it's about a 5-minute radio clip. So take a listen to this.
All right, so during the pandemic, more people have been trading stocks online at home. This is a little bit like gambling, and some people are becoming addicted. NPR's Jim Zarroli has the story of a trader who lost tens of thousands of dollars and now is trying to stop other people from doing the same.
YouTube is filled with videos about how to make money day trading. The videos made by Matthew J. are different.
$127,000. How did I do it? How did I lose it?
In an interview, Matthew, who doesn't want his real last name used because it might affect his other businesses, says he discovered stock trading early on while he was still a business major in college in Ontario.
I like risk. I like to just know I have opportunity that's potentially there. So even like losing is like still like a high. Winning's a high.
For the first 6 years or so, Matthew did really well. He slowly turned a few $1,000s into a nest egg worth more than $150,000. But he wanted to make money even faster.
I just wanted more consistent income to be able to pull out money every week kind of thing. And that's why I got into day trading.
As a day trader, Matthew would sit at his computer and make a dozen trades a day, trying to profit off of tiny fluctuations in prices. Thanks to the explosive growth of free online brokerage sites, millions of people have taken up trading, and they're doing so at a time when the stock market is going gangbusters. Ameriprise, Charles Schwab, and Robinhood have seen dramatic increases in customer accounts.
People are stuck at home. They had nothing to do, and so they ended up trading.
Brett Steenbarger is a professor of psychiatry who coaches professional traders. He says studies have shown most day traders lose big.
On average, day traders do horribly, and the percentage that end up sustaining success are in low single digits.
At first, Matthew made money, but even when he came out ahead, it was somehow never enough.
And I found whenever I hit that new high point, I'm happy for a day or two, but then I'm upset that I'm not at the next level. So it was a constant battle of never being completely satisfied, really.
And Matthew came to hate the isolation of day trading, sitting alone and staring into a computer screen for hours at a time. Several times he decided to quit, only to get pulled back in. Keith White of the National Council on Problem Gambling says day trading becomes an addiction for many people.
What became addictive was the high speed of play. When they're trade after trade after trade after trade, it's that same hypnotic effect that people report when they sit in front of a slot machine.
White says apps such as Robinhood encourage people to do risky trading. And he says these days he's hearing from more and more day traders who got in over their heads. That's what happened to Matthew.
So then it's like I try to jump in another stock quickly to make some money back. You take a loss there, and then you're just, snowballing into another loss.
His $150,000 nest egg fell to $50,000, then $40,000. He says his blood pressure rose. He stopped seeing friends.
There's 2 or 3 times I broke down, almost bawling my eyes out of what am I doing? And this is what I want so badly. It's my dream to do this. And how can I be failing?
That's when Matthew finally stopped day trading. Today, at 33, he's become a real estate agent, a job he says he's much better suited for. Matthew says there may be people who can make money day trading. The reality, he says, is that most people are going to lose. Jim Zaroli, NPR News.
So I hope that gives you a good sense
All right, so
of kind of the connection between gambling and day trading. We heard from Keith White, the executive director at NCPG, National Council on Problem Gambling. It's interesting when the individual that they were interviewing was speaking, he said, at some point, the winning and the losing was both a high. He just wanted to be in the market. He just wanted to have something at risk, something at stake. And that's the thing, when you talk about day trading and gambling, it's not a money problem. It's an emotional issue. Money problems oftentimes will result from them. But I took a helpline call when I was working at 800 Gambler, and the gentleman called up and he said, I don't have a gambling problem. I have a money problem. And he said, if I had more money, I wouldn't have a gambling problem. And I've talked to day traders who have said the same exact thing. If I had more money, I wouldn't have any problems. But that's not the solution. The solution is dealing with why do you feel the need to do X, Y, and Z? And for that gentleman, the speed, the rapid reinforcement, it all mattered. I mean, that's how you fall into that world. So I hope that video clip, Jim Zaroli did a great job. I spoke with him last November, and it was just kind of talking a little bit about the connection between the feelings and emotions between day trading and gambling. So that was a really good piece. And I hope that gave you some context for what we talk about. There's some similarities and differences. When we're starting to grow gambling around the world and around the United States more, but I know gambling is growing all over the place. Australia, the UK, Canada, the United States, it's growing all over the place with sports betting. We're starting to see more people trying to find a system to use. What's your system? How do I gamble and how do I make money? How do I profit from this? And there's this, I guess, term, the Kelly criterion, which has really been adapted for the world of gambling and also for the world of day trading. It was originally used for the investing world, but then it was found to be suitable and applicable as a betting system by people who bet on horses and now sports. And essentially what it tries to do is it tries to establish a bankroll. So you're starting with a certain amount of money, and it tries to say, take no more than X% of your bankroll each day and gamble. So if you have $1,000 that you want to gamble with, that's your gambling money, well, then take no more than $20 a day. And over time, manage your money, manage your finances. It's all about money management. That's what the Kelly criterion is all about. But for the person who develops a problem, it's hard for that person to keep it at $20 because of what I just said a little while ago. Our bodies have an amazing ability to adapt and our tolerance increases. So people lose sight of the fact that this is a form of entertainment. And now all of a sudden they use this activity as a way to feel better, as a rush, as an excitement. Instead of doing things that make us feel better organically, like exercise, going for walks, reading, taking a nice hot bath, eating good food, a candle, those things, we'll start using drugs, alcohol, and gambling and day trading to feel better because we can feel better quicker if the outcome is just right. I want to feel better now. I don't want to wait. I don't want to put myself through a 1-hour workout where I'm going to be sweating and feeling miserable in order to feel better later on. I'd rather just jump online and hope I win something really quick. Then I'll feel really good. See, there's a subtle difference. That these are some of the differences that we see. But let's look at the pure definitions. Gambling. The definition involves risking something of value in hopes of winning something of value where there's chance involved, right? There's 3 elements of gambling. There's prize, something to be won. There's the risk or uncertainty, which is the chance. And there's consideration, the amount of money or something of value you have to put up. So those are the 3 things. Day trading involves risking something of value, right? In hopes of gaining value in it. There's that uncertainty piece, and there's speculation. So you're risking something of value to win something of value, and there's speculation involved. So both are very similar when we look at the definition. We also see a situation, and bear with me here, they have similar impact on the brain. There's activations are seen in similar regions. Monetary prospects overlap the high in response from cocaine infusion. So what's interesting is that when you look at someone's brain light up who's addicted to cocaine, and then you look at someone's brain light up who day trades and also gambles on sports, the similar regions of the brain are lighting up. There's a connection. You start looking at the connection between behavioral and psychological aspects of substance use and day trading. Dr. Tim Fong did a study. He's from UCLA Medical Center, and he did a lot of work around cocaine and gambling, cocaine and day trading. And when you have cocaine use, you desire more cocaine. But the same thing applies for gambling and day trading. When you start to do it, you desire more. Your tolerance picks up. And there's this craving that you start to feel. And then when we look at COVID-19, as I mentioned before, COVID-19 opened up more opportunity for people to explore these different trading activities and opportunities. There were more apps. There's more marketing around it. And it's not considered a gambling activity. We also tend to find that there's similarities and risky behaviors between sports betting and day trading. You see, sports betting is regulated at the state level, as I mentioned. It's not a federal, there's no federal policy, there's no national oversight. Ann and I have talked about this. There's no federal monies that go towards research, prevention, education. There's very few programs around the United States dedicated towards gambling education in youth. I think if Virginia can get a bill passed that provides curriculum in the school system for young people, now we're starting to get to primary prevention activity. A lot of the prevention activity we do around gambling in the United States is secondary and tertiary. You know, people are already doing it. People are already experiencing gambling related harms and problems. So we're getting to them later on. We need more policy. As a matter of fact, I received an email today, and it talks about National Drug and Alcohol Facts Week. But this is Problem Gambling Awareness Month, and we don't see the federal government sending anything out around Problem Gambling Awareness Month. SAMHSA did a piece, I guess it was 8 years ago, in this, it was in 2014 that SAMHSA put out an 8-page newsletter around disordered gambling. It was at the same time that the DSM elevated gambling disorder to the only non-substance related disorder on par with substance use. That was critical. That was critical. From a diagnostic perspective, from a medical legitimacy perspective, that was all critical. But the federal government doesn't do much in the way of education around gambling. In the same token, we've started having conversations with the financial services industry, FINRA, the Chicago Board of Options Exchange, the New York Stock Exchange. We're starting to talk to the regulatory authorities at the federal level and national level to say, hey, listen, you have a number of young people opening up accounts and they don't know what they're doing. They're treating it as if it's a gambling account and they're day trading. They're gambling with their lives. And so it's that speed, it's the repetition, it's the blinking lights, it's that desire for fast money. It's, as the radio individual said, it didn't matter if he was winning or losing, he just wanted that high. And that's what becomes potentially harmful for people, is that there's so many similarities over these risk-taking behaviors. There's so much technology advancement. It all lacks that time of reflection. When I'm so preoccupied in an activity, I'm so concerned with what the next bet is going to be, what the next investment, the next trade is going to be. I'm not thinking about what I just did. I've had a number of people call the 800 Gambler helpline when I would answer the phone for 800 Gambler. And they would say, I had no idea I spent so much time or money. I just lost track of time. And isn't that so critical? When we're on our phones, for example, how many of us have lost some amount of time during the course of the day because we were scrolling the pages of social media, Facebook, Instagram? Did I get a like on that thing I posted? Did anybody comment? It all feels good, but then all of a sudden you're scrolling and these things are designed to keep us entranced. These things are designed to keep us engaged, because that's how marketers make money. The more time you spend on a site, the more chance to see advertisements. And the more eyes that are seeing an advertisement, that means there's a percentage of those people that will actually buy the product or good or service that's being marketed. So there's a science behind this. And that's what we have to be aware of, is that we're seeing so many connected behaviors to speed, technology advancement. And these behaviors, in terms of day trading and gambling, are so well promoted and marketed through that device. Dr. Fong also went on to talk about gambling and day trading. He said that the impulses that are spurred on by short-term investments and financial speculation bear similarities to gambling disorders. He is the clinical professor of psychiatry and co-director for the Gambling Studies program. He studies this for a living, and he's starting to see this connection. It's also interesting. Gambling is one of those activities that if you told someone you have a gambling problem, there's a lot of shame and stigma. We heard the terminology, you're a degenerate gambler. Just stop. Why are you so greedy? Why do you want so much money? There's a negative connotation. But when you hear someone who says, yeah, I'm in the market, I'm day trading, the general feeling is that, oh, wow, that person's educated. They're really trying to do something. They're trying to advance themselves. It's not met with that same negative connotation. If somebody wins $10,000 gambling and they talk about it, everyone knows, okay, well, that's kind of weird. You must spend a lot of money. Like that's not good. If you make $10,000 in the stock market day trading, you're looked at as being successful. Yet both of them carry very similar amounts of risk, speculation, and uncertainty. And so day trading is generally more socially acceptable and almost seen as a worship status. Like, I want to follow this guy. I want his stock tips. I want her stock picks. I want to know what they're doing. It's glamorous. And the personality traits between the two are very similar. These are individuals typically who are sensation-seeking, risk-taking, impulsive, competitive, and again, there's some level of emotional dis-ease. Something's not at ease. There's some amount of instability at play here as well. When we look about regulations and restrictions in the gambling world, we have regulations at a state level. We have responsible gambling strategies. Okay, those are strategies, but a lot of it, the onus is on the individual. For the stock market day trading world, the Securities and Exchange Commission has strict rules to identify people who might be a pattern day trader. They have strict rules on who can borrow money to buy stocks in terms of what's needed and what level of knowledge and education is required to partake in certain risky behaviors. And I think that's interesting. There's a couple of things the gambling world can learn from the financial services world. Number one is the slogan. In the financial services world, at the bottom of every disclaimer, it says past performance is no indication of future result, or past performance is not indicative of future results. And I think that's critical, because in the gambling world, past performance is no indication of future results. If you won in the past, that doesn't mean now that you can just gamble and you're going to continue winning. So it's really interesting. We can learn a little bit. It's also interesting that for certain high risk types of trading in the stock market, you need to have a certain level of expertise. You need to be approved by an oversight committee within each brokerage house typically. In the gambling world, if I want to bet risky bets, parlays, and advanced types of wagers, I don't have to prove a certain level of education. I don't have to take a test. I don't have to pass a knowledge check. Maybe we should. A more educated consumer is a safer consumer. A more educated investor is a safer investor. A more educated gambler generally speaking, is a safer gambler. Maybe that's something we can take out. As we look through the remaining parts of these slides before we open it up to some Q&A in a couple of moments here, whether it's the gambling world or whether it's the investment world, I think we can classify people as being somewhere along a risk spectrum. Some people are very conservative. They do not want to take any risks. I'm thinking about my grandparents growing up. My grandparents never gambled. They never day traded. They were very, very conservative. Part of it is the culture you grow up in, the generation, the timing, family, a lot goes into it, as we know. I consider myself to be more on the high risk spectrum. I'm competitive. I have a risk-taking appetite. I've raced triathlon 18 years. There's something that's so appealing to me about racing and going downhill on a bike with 1-inch tires, the 1-inch thick tires, coming downhill at 50 miles an hour with a bike helmet. I'm comfortable with that risk, but it's all relative. There's no normal, that word's not used. We throw that out. It's all relative. It's relative to our comfort level. It's relative to our experience that we've had in the past. So it's somewhere, where do you fit? As you look through this today, where do you fit? And make sure if you're talking with other individuals that you don't project where you sit on your risk scale to someone else of where they may sit. One of the last slides I want to show, we talked a lot today about day trading versus investing, right? Instead of investing for a long period of time, we're now day trading and trying to shorten that reward schedule to rapid wins. And I think that's a critical takeaway here. The shortening of the reward schedule is something that's really underpinning a lot of our conversation today. And what do I mean by that? There are 6 examples here where, going back in time throughout history, and some even more recent, but not too long ago, we had to wait some period of time to get the reward, the potential for a reward. So think of when the lottery first came out. It used to just be once a day. It used to be once a night, even once a week if you go back far enough. Now you have instant win, scratch off, multiple times per day. There's even internet lottery where you can buy the lottery tickets from your phone on Jackpocket, which is one of the companies that provides this service. And I can buy lottery tickets from my phone and instantly know if I've won or lost. How about investing? Buy and hold for the long term. And now we shorten the reward schedule to day trading. Fantasy sports contests used to last a whole season, 4 months. Now I can play daily fantasy sports. I can try to win money and draft fantasy sports players on a daily basis. And sports betting. If I were to bet the New York Giants to beat the New York Jets in a football game, I would bet the start of the game. I would wait 3 hours, and the outcome would determine if I won or lost. Now, I can bet the start of the game, and 5 minutes later, I can close my bet. I can bet something else. I can make multiple bets during the course of the game. I've shortened the reward schedule. And for those of you that are on here that remember the self-addressed stamped envelope, that's one I always like to throw in there. Remember when you saw something in the newspaper, that thing we used to read that we'd get our fingers all black with at turning the pages? And if you saw something in the classified ads, it would say, send, $10 and a SACE, a self-addressed stamped envelope. And in 6 to 8 weeks, you will have your item. Do we have to wait 6 to 8 weeks now? No. I got it. Amazon, I have it within 1 to 2 days. I don't even want the item if I have to wait 6 to 8 weeks. It'll be out of date. I won't need it anymore. I want it now. I want it my way, and I want it quickly. It's all about shortening the reward schedule. As we deal with pre-pandemic to now, as we get out of the pandemic, we started to see younger people starting to experience gambling-related problems. We started seeing more social isolation. We still have more anxiety, stress, depression. These are all connected with higher rates of gambling-related problems, but we also saw more people opening up online day trading accounts. People who are experiencing the same type of symptoms, same issues, were now, instead of gambling, they were day trading. Both things are used as a way to alleviate an issue. Not necessarily the problem. It's the solution to the deeper issue of anxiety, of fear. fear of isolation, fear of the unknown. Fear is at the root of a lot of what we deal with and what we do. It's getting to that root cause, that root issue. During the pandemic, we tended to see that problem gamblers, people with gambling problems, tended to have less certain modes of recovery. That was a huge concern. People didn't know where to turn for help. They also didn't have strong health factors, social factors, financial factors, recovery capital. During the pandemic, a lot of holes were exposed in our infrastructure for recovery and support. That's why we're starting to see an increase in the use of telehealth, which has been wonderful. We're seeing the increase in the use of online recovery communities. Gamblersinrecovery.com is a wonderful resource for people experiencing gambling-related harms. I've even seen people who have day trading related issues log into and join meetings virtually to hear the experience of someone who's got a gambling problem because they connect it so closely. As we move through here, I just want to kind of show that during the pandemic, Fortune magazine noted there was a surge in day trading. Online brokers noted a surge in new accounts, and the 800 Gambler helpline received a 3-time increase in phone calls where people were indicating day trading was the problem. So it's here. It's something that we deal with. It's something that as clinicians and preventionists, we need to recognize. It's a problematic activity. It could become a problematic behavior in someone's life. We have to be aware of it, continue to attend workshops, learn, read, educate. You don't have to become an expert on it, but just having the basic knowledge that we have a shortening reward schedule and that there's an activity out there that may have been flying under the radar that we need to talk to people about, especially if they're in recovery from drugs, alcohol, and gambling as well. Have a conversation. Talk to those close to you in your life about their behaviors and activities that could become problematic. It also helps to reduce stigma. Let's reduce stigma during Problem Gambling Awareness Month. Let's talk about it. We don't want to keep it in the shadows of the dark. Let's talk about the things that we struggle with. Focus on mental health. It's so vital and so important. And take action. Make sure resources are available for those struggling with gambling addiction, which also includes cryptocurrency and day trading. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I want to thank you, Anne, for the opportunity here to share. I know I left a few minutes left to address any questions or comments.
Yes, I actually had one myself, but let me go to this person's first. His name, James Wooler, and he in the chat, it says, so we often hear the expression, the house always wins, meaning the payer sometimes wins, but the house always wins. How large is the corporate company profit generated by the fees and transactions in order to process a trade, bet, etc.? I don't know if you know the answer to that or not.
I don't have specific answers, but again, I think it highlights another similarity between the gambling industry and the stock market world. I think you hit it right on the head. You know, in the gambling world, they make those big fancy casinos, they spend all that marketing budget because the house wins, right? The odds are always in the favor. In the stock market day trading world, they take that similar concept, as he highlights, through fees and expenses, the nickel and diming. And yes, you'll find some no fee brokerage houses, you'll find some low fee, but then they still get you in other ways. $1 for a statement here. If you want to talk to a live person, you got to pay $2. So they microtransactions, right? They normalize the spending of little dollars to nickel and dime their way. So I don't have the statistics in terms of how much money is made, but it's a huge business, just as the way that the gambling industry is a huge business. Great point, great question.
So just one more question, and then I guess we're out of time. But you mentioned about how if you've got $1,000 to spend $20, so you're setting yourself a limit. And it's funny that you kind of said something that I've sort of thought. It's, what about the person who ends up having a problem gambling? Are they going to be able to stick to limits? So what do we, I mean, if that's not going to be something that's going to help stop someone from, having a problem, any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, the harm prevention, I mean, we always try like risk reduction, right? Because there's all different pathways. So I never want to just go straight to abstinence. You know, if for some people, it could be a season of their life, it could be an episodic situation where it's traditionally not a real big problem. So by setting limits, that might work for them. But if you set a limit and you find that you're blowing through limits and you just can't stick to them, well, then we got to talk abstinence. And then it's not about limit setting. It's about creating a new life where this activity no longer fits in, because it shows that you don't have a healthy relationship with that activity. Much the same way that I tried harm reduction for gambling. It did not work for me at all, because it's the intermittent reward schedule. Every so often I win. And as soon as I would win, in my brain, I'd say, aha, I got it. I'm back. I'm good. I know what I'm doing. It was that false sense of hope. And that happens in the day trading world when you happen to get lucky enough to pick that stock that goes up fast and you're like, aha, I got this. But no, because then you got 9 that don't go up and you lose and you're quickly thrown back. It's like a cycle. It's like that. And I always think about it for myself. It's recidivism. You know, yeah. For me, I'm stuck in this mental prison and I'm constantly coming out of it and going back into it. I'm recidivism of my own mind. Mm-hmm. And that's how I really started thinking about it. I say, I don't want to ever go back to prison. So I got to stay out of it. I need to create a new life where it no longer fits in. Yeah. So we try harm reduction, we try limits and budgeting and financial stuff like that. But if it doesn't work, let's talk about our relationship and how to change that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Dan. This was terrific. And I appreciate everything. And I know we're out of time and people may have other things to go to. But I appreciate this, and I hope everybody enjoyed it, and they'll get people will get an email link to them, or a link emailed to them to do an evaluation. And I guess that's it. And everybody have a nice day.
Thank you so much, Anne. So